law school, criminal justice system in the state of Indiana, I worked in the public defender's office. So I would spend quite a bit of time at Michigan City Prison at ISP. I spent a lot of time at Westville, and started to get an understanding of our criminal justice system, some pitfalls in our criminal justice system, some things we can do better at the local level. Those are things that I always carried with me. I also worked in local government, which I think is an incredibly important thing. I don't think anybody should work at the state level until you work in local government. And I think that's particularly true in the state because in this state, we tend to, we always hear about small government, but we make a lot of these decisions downstate that impact us at the local level and it ties our hands. We're talking about creativity, funding. These are the things that, local governments need, and local municipalities and counties, they need that flexibility because not every county or every city is the same. I mean, even within the county, you have different needs in different areas. I think working in local government, particularly as a city attorney here in Northwest Indiana, was a really great experience that prepared me for working in the Senate. So either way, Senator Diane eventually said, "All right, kid, get out there. It's your turn." So she supported me in the caucus. I went and just got done with my first session a couple of weeks ago. It was a fantastic experience. There was some highs and some lows. We had to kill a lot of bad bills this year that were being proposed that I think really hurt us in Northwest Indiana and the rest of the state. Those are bills that were aimed at public education, bills that were aimed at our working families, bills that would hurt, again, local control and our labor unions in Northwest Indiana. And us here at Northwest Indiana, one of the things that I think I truly cherish is the strength of our union because it adds to the strength in our communities. We have higher wages up here than we do in the rest of the state. I think that's really attributable to our strong unions. But the things that I've been able to work across the aisle on is one of the things that I was kind of complimented on. There was you work like Callie, you would work across the aisle by making legal arguments that really rang true to the other side. And it wasn't about politics. It was just about good policy and good, strong legal arguments. And so what we ended up getting accomplished were things that were going to help our public school districts. I had measures passed that it's going to help us staff our education support professionals throughout our districts. Those are the individuals that really kind of hold the glue together for our districts. These are your bus drivers, your para educators, your teachers' aides, your substitutes. We're seeing a crisis in our state. You're seeing some states go back to virtual because of the lack of them. You're seeing some states beg parents to come in and work as substitutes because it's hard to get people to work back in the schools. We've cut funding in the last 10 years with the education reforms that have occurred, and that ultimately impacts our quality of life. That is going to hurt us, more so than what downstate even actually realizes. Because now, we cut taxes and we deregulate. And we say, hey, we're business friendly, but businesses aren't coming in Indiana. Businesses are saying, hey, it's great, you got low taxes and you got deregulation, but nobody wants to live there that works for our company. We're having a hard time trying to recruit people to move to Indiana. So sorry, we can't go. We'll just pay higher taxes in Ohio, and we'll take our $20 billion factory over there as opposed to working here in Indiana. So these are quality of life measures that we absolutely have to address downstate. It's something that I've been a big advocate for. That and a cleaner environment. There's a new study that came out that said we have the most polluted waterways in the state, and that's something that's just not. I know that's not acceptable for me. I'm sure it's not acceptable for you. And us here, particularly in Northwest Indiana, we have a specific concern with coal ash. That's one of the issues that I was able to get bipartisan support to study coal ash and how we could regulate it and how it could be better addressed than it was. I mean, if you guys are familiar with the town of Pines, if anybody's from Pines, you guys know the story of coal ash and Pines. So that's one of the things that I was really proud to get bipartisan support. And I see candidate Heinrich is here, and I'm sure he's seen his fair share of the opioid epidemic. It's if you haven't had any experience with that, Northwest Indiana, get a lot of ticket because you're very lucky. I think it's touched almost every family in some way or another, friends and family, co-workers. But it was one of the things that I got bipartisan support to get a measure passed that's going to study our opioid epidemic, our overdoses, what those substances are, where they're located, where they're coming from. So these are the things that I was actually really happy to get done. I was really proud of these accomplishments, and that's proven into that proven leadership has garnered me a lot of endorsements that I'm very proud of. I've got the labor, pretty much all the labor unions, building trades, their support, the USW. I just got the Indiana Firefighter Drivers Association, State Union, their endorsement. You know, and I just keep racking them up and keep moving forward. And I'm hoping to get some support as we go into the May primary. If you start voting, May 3rd, you got to vote by. So if anybody has any questions or anything, I'd love to take them. Absolutely.
Yeah, my question to you is, what was it like being here for the first time?
What was it like?
What were your challenges? What were your challenges when you went downstate or when you started this job and you hadn't done it before?
That's an easy question. I mean, you get down there with a whole bunch of ideas. And you're like, all right, let's get to work. And they're like, all right, well, you're a freshman Democrat. You're 11. You're one of 11 out of 50. And so, you know, going to chairman and saying, hey, you know, I've got a really great bill and I'd like to get some support for it. And like, great, get some support for it. And there's some time towards the end of session. We'll get you on there. And if not, we'll get you next year. So that was those are the things that you kind of get the door slammed in your face a little bit. But I think, you know, how I was able to overcome that is I started working with Republicans on their bills. This is something I learned from Senator Italian, which is work on their bills with them. You know, even if it's a bill you're ultimately going to vote against, demonstrate what's wrong with it, demonstrate, you know, fix as much of it as you can. And, you know, at the end of the day, if you're going to push it through and you got to vote against it, But demonstrate that you're going to work with them and they'll work with you. And then by the end of session, all of a sudden I had, you know, bills that were coming up in committee hearings and resolutions that were getting passed because of it. And so, you know, it's being able to work across the aisle like that and being able to demonstrate that you're really there, not for yourself, not for your, you know, your political party or anything like that. You're there for your community and theirs as well. So, yeah, definitely a hard lesson.
I wondered.
Oh yeah.
So I like what you said about the businesses aren't coming here anymore, even though we have tons of incentive dollars, they sort of economic development here. So that was hard to watch when knowing that our quality of life is the worst I mean, we're in the bottom five for almost everything, especially maternal and child health. So what policies are you going to encourage or put in place that bills to write or whatever?
Absolutely. So this last session, I was proud to support a bill that's extending Medicare for Medicaid for mothers and the children up to 12 months after the child is born. That was something that we had to take care of before the state. But you know, our infant mortality rate was terrible. So that was one of the things that we were able to accomplish. Bipartisan support this year that I was really proud of. But as far as addressing why and how businesses want to come here, we have to address our public education system. You know, for a state that you know, has decided to cut $300 million in 10 years from our budget, you know, we're starting to really feel that impact. And you know, being able to reinvest back in public education, and particularly higher education, making the connection between our high school students and the trades, making the connection between high school students and our and our higher education, you know, particularly here in Indiana, making sure that we're reversing brain drain. I mean, we're a state that yes, high school kids, you know, pretty much anywhere. Where do you want to go? Oh, I want to get out of here. But in Indiana, they don't come back. And that's problematic. That's very problematic for us because when they don't come back, you know, even if some of our best schools, if they're not coming back, they're not bringing their families. They're not bringing they're not bringing that workforce. And so businesses aren't going to come here. And I think that's something we absolutely have to reverse. You know, education has to be number one in a cleaner environment. I can't tell you how much of a jewel I think Northwest Indiana really is. We have so much potential here. We're located so close to, you know, so close to the wonderful city of Chicago. But if you talk to people from anywhere else, they'll tell you, "Well, I've been through Northwest Indiana. Yeah, like smokestacks and steel mills, and that's what their image is." And then they'll hear stories about, you know, oh, we got a national park, but the national park had it closed because we had a major spill. So making sure that we're holding individuals accountable. You know, even though these are, you know, great partners, they're great employers, they have to be held accountable, and we have to create the environment because otherwise nobody's going to want to live there if that's what they hear. You know, nobody's going to want to visit the only national park that we have in our state if, you know, they get a chance and it's going to be closed because there's going to be some sort of spill. So those are two of the main issues that we definitely have to address. And then in addition to that, I think really right now you're starting to see a lot of support. I think right now it's the highest support for our labor unions and making sure that we're supporting our labor unions instead of them and our teachers unions that really consistently go down to Indianapolis every session and fight, fight what are some pretty divisive bills that are gonna end up hurting us. I think, for businesses, they want to attract, regardless of, union or non-union. And if they see that we don't treat our workers very well, we don't treat our working class very well, they're not gonna want to, they're not gonna move. So those are probably some of the biggest issues that I think are the policies that I've started.
I have a follow-up.
Yeah.
Early childhood education and intervention, any thoughts on that for the state? I mean, we have our 0 to 5, we're just, it's so critical, and I just don't think we're servicing that population at all.
Absolutely. My wife's.
And it's an attraction.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, for young families, for young professionals, if they know that if they move there, that there are gonna be, they're gonna be early childhood services, that, Indiana is a state that would, that would both promote and make available early childhood services. That's obviously, it's gonna be something that's top of the list. I can't tell you, how much of an indicator it is where somebody's gonna move. How good is the school district? How good is it going to be for my kids? They're not thinking of it because, the property taxes, that's one part of it, sure. If you're in a good district, your property value is probably gonna go up. But ultimately, they're planning their life. They're picking somewhere where they're gonna put their roots forever. And if they know that, hey, sure, we'll live in this district, but we're gonna have to take our kids elsewhere, or we're gonna have to, figure something else out, they're not going to do it. I mean, I've seen that happen time and time again. We had a lot of friends that, particularly post-pandemic, the young professionals that were like, hey, we want to move out of Chicago. After everything that, after the pandemic and, last couple of years of Chicago, we want to settle down in Northwest Indiana. And one thing that they went on were the good school districts, were the places that I know that I'm going to be able to do. So investing in, in early childhood education is going to be absolutely critical. It's something that my wife, she's a school teacher, she's a school board member. It's something that she's been making. We're missing the boat here where our kids are behind and then our school districts are starting to fail because they can keep up with other states that actually do invest in early childhood education. These kids are ready when they get there. You don't have a year of, okay, here's catch up, and then you have, a gap in the classroom between the kids that had the ability to, invest in, or that had parents that had the ability to invest in some sort of early education and those that didn't. So it makes it very, very difficult for our teachers. Anybody else?
Question, what is your idea of Indiana redistricting here for the Senate district to represent, for the state?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a problem we see throughout the entire country. And I think it's detrimental to our democracy. What we're seeing is that, whoever's in power gets to, they draw these maps, they redistrict however they want. And it makes it, to where these races don't become competitive. We don't have actual representative government working for us. We have, parties in power that can say, okay, well, we want to make sure that Joe's spot is always going to be Joe's spot. So we're going to draw this district map however we feel Joe needs it drawn. That's problematic. I think it's a terrible way to govern. I don't think it's fair at all. Regardless of what I think what you're going to end up having is, and I'll put it this way. I think that there was a soundbite that came out of the session that I think is probably one of the most impactful and important indictments on our political system. And it came from a very hardcore conservative superintendent of the state police, Doug Harper. He specifically said, this is the problem with supermajorities. He was talking about a bill in particular that was going to go against law enforcement. And I think that was, when I sat there and I heard that him state that, I thought, wow. I mean, it really puts a pin on it. When you have somebody from within the party that's in the supermajority saying, this is the problem with supermajorities, I think it goes to show it's not just one party that just sounds like we're complaining, oh, this is fair. No, because when you're on the other end of it, it doesn't matter what it is. If you see that it's bad policy and it's only driven by, by an agenda as opposed to good policy and good data, you're going to end up with people that are not happy. You're going to end up with an electorate that gives, that feels ignored by its own government. So,
Well, we in Michigan City have been tossed back and forth between Porter County and Lake County and St. Joseph's County, and it's hard for us to, and I've been voting for 50 years and practiced law for 50 years. it's just hard to really get a feel, and we're a small area compared to other areas I mentioned, but still, it seems like we're just ignored, downstate, so.
Yeah, that is a sentiment that I took with me down, knowing that, sometimes we're considered the stepchild, we're up in Indiana, we're the forgotten part of it. They treat us kind of like, oh, well, you're basically Chicago, and Chicago treats us like, no, you're the sticks, you're Indiana.
Yeah,
So we are, we find ourselves in this island, and it kind of comes through in a lot of legislation that you see. A lot of times there's carve outs for, Northwest Indiana counties. But, getting down there, I think, how I tried to reverse that was just kind of to demonstrate, hey, listen, these are what the issues that we have in our community, the same issues that you have in your community. We may have different needs, we may have different interests, but at the end of the day, the only way that, that I can explain to you, talking to a fellow representative or fellow senator from Southern Indiana, somewhere else, is just to explain, hey, listen, it's bad for us, it's that, we can do that. So I look at it as, in Northwest Indiana, we try to, take care of our local families. And if it's bad for us, I'm telling you this now, it's gonna be the same kitchen table issues that you're gonna be seeing at all your town. So, that's the best way that we can relate to it. But I mean, ultimately, it's the way that these districts got drawn up. It's not, I think you're gonna need court intervention. I think at a certain point, you're gonna have the judiciary step in and say, okay, now you've gone beyond what is constitutional for a representative. So
I have been involved in one of those cases a long time ago. But Indiana had come down in west of Indianapolis and then south, had drawn a district that was about 85, 90 miles long, and about 10 miles wide. And I mean, it's just, you're right. We're gonna need more objective attention rather than Joe saying, I want to make sure, that I got my voters and that kind of thing. And South Bend is going through an interesting, I happen to read the South Bend Tribune every day, and they're going through an interesting feature in their municipal district.
Yeah.
And they've had some real knockdown, drag out fights. But one thing, I was the attorney for the art district in Michigan City for 35 years. And one of the things that I'd like to see you, as the senator from this area, relates to the loss of life from our public beaches during the summer and drownings. And there is a remedy for that, because Indiana, at least as far as I know right now, and never has had a law that permits Andy Heineck or Michigan City Police to order people out of the lake. There is no such law. We went down, I don't know, it's been 20 years ago, 5 years ago, to a committee meeting that had been set up by our good local representative, and it was very it was strange. I mean, I've lived in Indianapolis, and I used to know an awful lot about Southern Indiana because I was in the federal court there, and we had court cases in Evansville, Terre Haute, New Albany, as well as Indianapolis. So it was no surprise to me when I went down, and I've lived here all my life. When I went down to Indianapolis to the legislature to testify before a committee relating this to this subject of being able to order people out of the lake. You get out of the lake. You know this. There's a committee of about 9 people there, and they're all from all over the state, of course. And I really only had one, I think, from up here. A number of those people had never seen Lake Michigan.
oh yeah, get that a lot.
And and they were asking questions about it. And I, being a courtroom attorney, got a little bit, and I said, well, you know, have you ever seen Lake Michigan, sir? And the answer was no, I haven't. So it was a total loss as far as we were concerned. We had a team down there of about seven people from Michigan City involved. And it's really just a simple law. Now the national park has its own regulations. They are in charge and they've got the ability to order people out of the lake. I don't remember any more about the Indiana Dunes State Park, whether there's a special statute that allows them to do it or not. But for municipalities, and really there's kind of just us, and I mean, there's Hammond, and you know, there's a few municipalities along the lake. But we have no authority, no legal authority from the state to order people out of Lake Michigan. Get out.
That's wild.
And
So-
there needs to be a law that permits that, because people don't pay any attention to the signs that we put up. They, you know, and they come here from Elkhart or from, you know, Valparaiso, well, not Valparaiso, but places that are, you know,
Most of your time it's in Chicago County.
yeah, it's Chicago people, and many people, English is a second language, and, but, you know, when you've got a uniformed officer pointing the finger at you, get out, they can understand that. And so that's something for you to think about with your representation of this area.
Yeah, no, and believe me, it's, you know, my wife and I, we always, you know, it's always a great conversation, like, oh, there's drowning again, and it's, you know, it's always a 12, 13-year-old kid, 14-year-old kid, most of the time, not, I think those of us that were raised by the beach, we grew up with fear, respect it. You knew that waves were big, like, yeah, it's exactly, so show bias, the exact condition. I'm surprised, I did not realize, you know, I knew we could shut our beaches down in there's an emergency situation, but I didn't know, it's like, even in that situation, somebody goes out in the water, you know. Sheriff, I mean,
I ran our scuba team for many years, and we had, you know, I can tell you that several times we would go pull, or we dispatched out there on Sunday afternoon, pull a young kid, usually almost always from outside the area, out of the lake. That is, we're deciding whether we're gonna put a diver in the water because it's simply too dangerous for us to go in. There are still people going into the lake and looking at you like you're crazy when we say, listen, like, we're going in here because there's been a loss of life. And they look at you like, but again, I think you make a very valid point with that, in that most of the time they're from outside the area and they don't simply, and I've said this for decades, that when we, all of us take for granted, we live next to lakes, we say, tomorrow's gonna be my beach day. We wake up and say, well, that lake looks a little rough, today isn't my beach day, I'll go next week. Other people have made plans and say, I'm going to Michigan City on Tuesday, and we're going to the lake, and I don't care whether it's bad or not, they drive right by that sign and don't blink an eye.
I know how to swim, I'll be fine.
Just to follow up what Andy said, that's why we do have authority and control over the beach, over the ground, not the water. And that's why we don't close the beach on a day like that, because people have come here from all over the place, get their picnics out, you know, they can look at the lake and so forth. So we don't say, well, the water's real rough, so we're just closing the beach, which we could do, but no one wants to do that. So really, the answer is a state statute gives law enforcement the authority to determine, and they, you know, the legislature can work out how you want it to trigger, whether it's the chief of police or the mayor or the park board or whoever, to determine that this is a day when people must stay out of the water, and then it have to be enforced by law enforcement. Our lifeguards can't do that. They can say to people, you know, don't go in the water, it's dangerous, we've got the red flag going, well, you can't keep me out of the water. That's true. But it's got to be, we feel it's got to be changed. And maybe you can pick that up as an effort with all your friends from Southern Indiana.
Yeah, no, it's, but it's, I mean, we joke about it, but I think having the, you know, it's not as if we don't have empirical data to show, to back that up. I mean, how many lives do we have to lose every year to, you know, to drowning? you know, families that get broken up. I mean, these are things that they'll speak to folks that don't understand it, even if they've never been to the beach. When we say, hey, I mean, Andy, how many drownings do you think we have?
Oh, a lot, and I'll tell you, the resource for that is Great Lakes Surf Project, which
Yeah.
is, they're very passionate about that. And again, across the lake, we have, you know, just in Indiana, probably, you know, 6 to 10 a year minimum, but one is too many. You know, if we have one, but we own some responsibility, again, on not being able to tell these people, you know, and you know, I've seen in me, when the scuba team would go around, we would have like beach fun day, we would educate the kids. The problem is the people who are educating, they live here, right? It's the kids from Lake Hill School who are a block away from the beach. Well, they don't need the education at Puma Lake. They know that Puma Lake, you know? It's the kids that come from Indianapolis, and Clarksville, and Evansville that simply don't understand the respect.
Good luck.
Yeah.
I got another question.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this goes back to just your newness down there. What kind of pressure do you feel, or how much pressure is exerted for you to go by party line?
You know, actually, my party's, it's a small group and everybody's, you know, there's a couple folks from Indianapolis, there's a couple folks from here in Northwest Indiana. And I think everybody pretty much respects, you know, hey, well, you gotta vote for that, you gotta vote for that, or if you don't gotta vote for that, I can understand it. I was actually surprised. There isn't a whole lot from my caucus in particular. They've always been very supportive and understanding. So we've had a number of votes that have not gone down party lines. Now, you know, I'll say this, on the other side of the aisle, you can see that there is that pressure, you know, particularly when there's a specific agenda that's getting pushed. I was at a candidate forum earlier today, and I had a conversation with Senator Charbonneau, who's just to the south of my district. And, you know, you could tell, you know, we were talking about some of the controversial bills, particularly with the constitutional carry bill.
Yeah.
And you can see that he struggled mightily with a lot of that. And I feel bad for him. I mean, he would never be able to say so, but you can tell that, I mean, these are things that comes from that political pressure. Is he knows what's going on in Northwest Indiana. He knows that there's shootings that are happening in Michigan City, that there's shootings that are happening in Gary, that you don't make law enforcement any safer in this situation. And I think he ultimately voted against it, but I think, you know, as a party, I know there's a lot of pressure on there, but I was pleasantly surprised to an extent. I shouldn't say surprised, but, you know, I was happy to find out that really my party was really supportive of, hey, you know, you're smart, you knew what you were doing when you got down here. You have a community to represent. You do that.
How can that get populated further? I mean, you look at the stupid national government. I mean, for crying out loud, you got, you know, every bill that goes out, well, 100% of the Democrats voted for it, and, you know, no Republicans, or 100% of the Republicans voted for it, and no Democrats. You know, just can't possibly be right. Okay, I mean, there's got to be people who, you know, I'm a Republican, but I certainly wouldn't have voted for that carry bill. Okay, you know, and you just got to be able to make these choices on your own and represent the people that you're talking to.
You're absolutely right. I will say this, we did have some party line bills, but it was because we knew, you know, on our side, we were like, these are bad bills. We didn't want these, you know, certain bills to get passed. But we actually had quite a bit of bipartisanship. I mean, that's what I was surprised. The House and I think in the Senate have different cultures. I think in the Senate, there's much of a thoughtful approach. Things don't necessarily move as quickly. And that's, I think, because there's that time that's taken to understand what's actually at stake. You know, things that wait till the next session, they can wait till the next session. I think on the other side, there's so many people that when you get that many people in a group and everybody's an elected official and everybody's very proud of what they do and where they're from, they're gonna push for things and they're gonna do so in a much more forceful way. But you know, I think that, you know, in the Senate, on the Senate side, I was really happy to see, you know, I had support from people that I would not have thought I would have gotten support from, you know, from parts of Southern Indiana that I know, you know, I mentioned earlier, you know, you have different areas, different interests. I knew that their interest and my interest in the line, but, you know, they understood, hey, if this means this much to you, you know, I'll help you with this. So it's really just, it's establishing those relationships. I know Senator Diane is really good at that, you know, and that goes to show during our resolution quarter, you know, you had Republicans that were standing up saying she was one of the most important, she was the most important senators in this chamber. She was the heart and soul of this chamber. You know, she worked across the aisle and will always respect her for that. And so I think they looked at me like, are you gonna do the same? You know, are you gonna help us the way that she helped us? Are you just like some young kid that's coming down here to, you know, to make a name for herself? And I think they were pleasantly surprised that I followed in her footsteps very much so.
Yeah, sometimes I agree wholeheartedly with George Washington, who said that he hates parties.
Yeah.
He didn't want a two-party system. He wanted it none. Okay.
I had a sheriff candidate in Porter County, we were talking earlier today, and, you know, they mentioned, you know, it would be great if a lot of these offices didn't have to declare a party, you know,
Yes.
like, if Andy didn't have to declare a party, I'm sure Andy would feel pretty great about it. You know, just because it's really what it is. I mean, who wants to be arrested by someone and go, oh my, I'm getting arrested by a Democrat, but I'm a Republican, like, that's just a weird thing. It's a good judge.
Policing the last few years, I think, is when.
Yeah,
2 years ago, I never would have thought that it was important, and it still is important to me now, but I think to certain people, when it comes to policing, attorney is important.
Yeah,
Yeah, justice is blind, right? Why,
Oh, I agree.
why does
I
a
agree.
judge or a sheriff or a prosecutor declare a party?
I
We
think-
truly see
Yeah,
justice.
it's just- I think in Minnesota.
I think the same thing goes with judges. I mean, you know, I feel, it's, you know, who wants to appear in front of somebody, you know, and
Yeah,
say.
that they're left or right, just want to be neutral.
Exactly.
Everybody must-
Supposed to follow the laws for.
Yeah.
Right, that's it.
So.
I think our sergeant is cutting you off there, speaker.
Speaking is blind as well. So.
699. Oh, is that mine?
Yep, it's yours.
Yeah, you pick for me. 'Cause I was stacking with it. What's your sign?
What's my sign?
Yeah,
Like,
your zodiac sign.
Taurus.
You talk fast like I did. I wonder if you were doing.
You know why I talk this? Actually, it's probably more about today. We had a candidate forum earlier today. It's 2 minutes. I don't know any elected official that you could get to talk in 2 minutes. Everybody sounded like the micro machines guy or the dumpster guy.
Okay, any other questions?
You're doing a great job.
Hey, thank you.
Good job.
Thank you. I got some cards up here. I'll pass them.
We'll let you have something to eat too before you go. So that's, I'll hang around. Man. Okay, that's it, folks. If nobody's paying attention to me anyway. Where's that bell? All right, well, the meeting is adjourned, obviously. Nobody's paying attention to me, so that's okay. Thank you, folks, for coming on. We'll see you.
Can I see that? Don't end it yet. Oh, not too late. I was wondering what the question was in the chat. I think it references, you could just click on the chat,
Oh, John wanted me to make sure,
that you got the bylaws?
yeah.
Yes. And you can just tell
Let me go back here and
them.
tell
I
him that we
handed
have.
them, yeah, just tell them I handed them to you.
Hey, John Wendell, if you can hear me, Mary says, I have the stuff from
I
Mary
turned over the bylaws.
for the bylaws.
Good luck, Andy.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You get that, John
Oh,
Wendell?
you know what? Let me just take a screenshot of his number. I'm gonna call him.
Okay.
It's hard to understand you, Jim, with all the other noise in the background. But I think you said Mary gave you the bylaws back to you.
Good, thanks.
All right, John, she's gonna give you a call too, so we're going that way. Thanks a lot for coming.
Bye, Jim.